Thank you, brother. Welcome, everybody, to this Sunday morning service here at Salt Lake Christian Church. The story that I will be telling you all this morning is about the theologian and priest Martin Luther and the monk. He was born in the late 1400s in Germany to a Catholic family who raised him in the church and with an understanding of Christ for the time. And his family made sure that he was well educated. As a child and young teen, they sent him to many different schools around Germany. Until he became a young adult, he went to college to study law. However, he quickly dropped out of law school, realizing that that was not for him, and decided instead to study theology and psychology. Around this time in his life, while he was riding his horse traveling, Martin Luther got stuck in a fierce thunderstorm, and lightning struck very near to his horse and spooked the animal as it roared up and almost knocked him off. It also spooked Martin Luther as he cried out, asking to be saved, and declared that if he survived this, he would become a monk. And so, surviving this storm, the weekend after that storm, he went and began the process to become a monk and joined the monastic group for the Catholic Church. Through this process, he eventually became ordained as a priest. And during this time, Martin Luther grew in knowledge of the Scriptures and of Christ. However, something he struggled with throughout the entirety of his life, really, but it really culminated during this period as a young adult. He struggled with his own internal sin. And yes, we all struggle with sin, but Martin Luther felt as though it had eaten away at him and corrupted him to the point that it was almost unreversible. He was known for doing extreme things like laying out in the snow naked for hours, trying to just cleanse himself and to feel better. However, nothing worked. He even confessed his sins, as the Catholics do. He confessed his sins to his priest over and over and over again, to the point that he became an annoyance to his priest. And his priest ended up sending him away to teach at Whitfield College, just to get him into a different town, to a different city, kind of distance himself from him.
Somebody else.
And so, during this time, Martin Luther had learned how to read the Scriptures in Italian, which was the only language the Bible was allowed to be written in Latin and Italian at the time. And reading through the letters of the Apostle Paul, the truth of Christ's salvation came alive to Martin Luther. The words in Romans spoke to Martin Luther, Paul's words, where Paul says that we are saved by faith, not by works, so that no man may boast. This passage changed Martin Luther's entire life and his outlook on the Scriptures entirely. And this newfound revelation, this recognition in the Scriptures, combined with the fact that the Catholic Church at this time was doing several practices that weren't necessarily biblical, such as charging people money to get out of purgatory and such. Martin Luther decided to write his famous 95 theses. And when he wrote them up, some accounts say that he took his paper and nailed it to the front door of his local Catholic church. Other accounts say he mailed the writings to a higher-up priest, but that one's not as exciting. And so, from there, rather inadvertently, Martin Luther began and he started what would come to be known as the Protestant Reformation. And so, Martin Luther, despite struggling great with his own personal sin throughout his life, God used him to reveal the truth of salvation in the Scriptures and to bring about this revelation to the common man. Martin Luther was the first person to make a modern, for the time, Bible written in a language the common folk could read. He created a New Testament and Old Testament versions in the spoken language of German that everyone at the time in Germany spoke. And so the common man was able to read the Scriptures for the first time in over 1,000 years. And they were able to have the Word of God in their own pocket and to memorize these Scriptures for themselves. And so we can see through Martin Luther, despite him being imperfect, as we all are, and despite his struggle that he had with sin, as we all do, Christ used him to open up the true message of salvation to an entirely new generation. And for over 500 years, Christianity has grown substantially because of him. So thank you. Let's bring the music.